I have never seen any internal pictures at this facility when it was the town hall. I might have seen, there was a sign outside that said, I think, municipal court, but can you just sort of point out, what was the setup?
The judge was sitting there and it was a little bit raised. It was a raised.
Right here,
right
at the front?
Right here, yeah. And it sat right there and it was, he would sit behind that big long thing here with a straight, like a regular.
So what, there'd be like a railing, like a
Well,
wall,
there was a wall,
step
as I
wall here?
recall, a wall or something here. And he sat behind it and he had court and he would sit there and just,
Bailiff would be kind of right here?
well, we didn't, this was a small town, you know, we don't know.
No bailiff?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I was young, I was
The janitor sometimes.
17.
So how was it set up out here?
Just chairs, just lined up, going
Just
down.
rows of
and
chairs?
A hallway going down the center.
Okay.
Just a row of chairs and the judge would sit up there and.
So you just walk up the same kind of staircase in?
Yeah, well, the staircase was different. There was a roof over it in those days.
Oh, right,
They took
okay.
the roof off and everything. Stairways came up this way and came in here, and there was a porch right there and a cover over it.
The
You
roof
go look
came
at
down
the
about
top, you can see
1970.
where the thing, but they said that wasn't the original, so they took it off.
It
That's
wasn't
why it
part of
was
the
removed.
original building?
Correct.
Right.
And so they took it off because it wasn't original, but it was there a lot of years, I can tell. I would have left it alone, it's just how a building changed. But because it was kind of a neat porch.
Wasn't it kind of like that ugly green that's
Yes,
right
it
there?
was green.
It was like an ugly,
Yes, it was a green.
pale green,
It was a green.
like that green, the whole,
Oh,
this
this,
room.
Yes. Well, this,
Like that green behind that chalkboard?
No, the
Dark
chalkboard was plain painted black. What you've got to remember is when it was the municipal buildings, there was a standard code of every municipal building in the United States. They all were battleship gray, and I can't remember what the green was called. Pea soup green.
Okay.
Where did that come from?
This wasn't pea soup.
Okay.
This wasn't pea soup green, but here it was dark green. The building had green, the porch was green.
Okay.
A real green. I'm talking about a real honest to goodness. It wasn't a bright green, it's just a dark green that they used.
That's the name that just hit me, but I don't remember what it was. But then you also, when the Historical Society came in, we brought people in to go down below the green, and then we knew what colors it had been painted all the way through. And there was greens, and this was the color.
I
that went
suspect
back
it was
as far
painted
as
many
possible.
times.
Oh,
yeah.
I think you had.
But you're saying
You
this
know.
was sort of the original, like,
This went back as
schoolhouses?
far as we can get back paint.
Well, it was a schoolhouse, of course.
Yeah.
Long before I was had anything here, but it was the town hall was here, downstairs in the back door down here where you went in before. That was police headquarters.
Right, okay, because someone asked me this yesterday. They said, was there a jail down here?
No.
Didn't they have to send them over to Bernardsville if there was a jail? Because there wasn't a jail
We
here.
put them in the car. I was in the police. Well, we put them in the car and took them down to Somerville.
That's where they go.
Yeah,
Ah.
down into
I
the
was just
county
going to say
jail.
it was Morristown, but it wasn't Morristown.
County,
It was
Somerset.
Somerville.
Somerset County.
Yeah.
So there
I
wasn't
just
a
got
jail
that
here.
mixed up.
Yeah, when we took prisoners, we didn't keep prisoners there. We just put them in a car and took them down there.
So why is that vault down there?
Everybody had
I
vaults.
thought it was for
Everybody had-
because the tax assessor was here, you came here,
Oh, maybe.
that there was money.
Fireproof documents, money?
Yes.
Lots of documents are now up at town hall and that.
But everybody in those days, even a grocery store would have a safe in the back of his building.
Come on, that's a
Doritos
walk-in.
across the
That's a
street.
walk-in, that's a pretty big unit.
I'm sure they had a safe. Everybody had a safe.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
When you went in the back room, there was always big old safes. That looked, not big, but they were, you know, like this. And the Sereno brothers were across the street. Danny and then
Grocery store. Our only grocery store.
Danny and Sammy
Oh.
and Freddie.
You're right, you're right.
Freddie was when the stoves and and the refrigerators and hammers and it's supposed to be a hardware store, a little hardware. He sold everything. You wanted a stove, you bought a stove.
Sereno's.
Over next door here,
Like the club.
right in the corner here. And he had a bread box.
Real estate. That
And
was
he used to
his
chase
arena.
us off the bread box in front of by the porch.
You called him for your
And he would yell at us, "Get off my bread box, I gotta get bread in there." You get delivered it early in the morning, and what is he? We're 3 o'clock in the afternoon, walking up from school. He didn't want to sit on his bread box, get off of him. But I became good friends of him because I was a commander of the American Legion, and they were in my post, and both of them were First World War veterans, Danny and Sam, and I got to know him real well. Good guy, but when I was a kid, I didn't like him, because they would shoot us off with the broom.
He was an authority figure, so.
Yeah.
So where did you grow up here?
Well, if you go out this door, make a right and go about a quarter of a mile on the right-hand side. I lived on West Oak Street.
Oh, you lived on West Oak?
Yeah.
Before 287?
Well, yeah, and when 287 came through, they took everything but my father's house. They took his front yard, his side yard, and his backyard, and left the house. He's the last house on the right before you go over the bridge.
I just saw a guy out in the front yard there yesterday.
You just saw what?
A guy working out in the front yard there, an older guy, big guy. Yeah, I just imagine that had to be, because I live on the other side of it,
Well,
of
he
about
was my
6
brother.
houses.
That goes straight down there. That's got my father put pin oaks there. There's pin oaks, and then it goes right down. There's a wall there, and he looks at kind of the railing of where the bridge starts to go over.
So were you living there when 287 was being installed?
Oh, I was living there.
So what was that like? Because guys were telling me about
my-
drag racing on that when it was
Well, my
closed.
wife got in a big fight with my father. They offered him a settlement. He didn't accept it. So they were coming through, and my father said, "I have to go away." Well, we won't touch your property because I hadn't settled with him. He had no longer gotten an airplane and left, and his giant bulldozer comes on our property, starts tearing it up. And my wife was 9 months pregnant, stood in front of that big thing. That thing must have been 10 feet high. And she stopped it. She stood right in front of me.
That's
And I
terrible.
come
Tiananmen
Is that
Square.
right?
Yeah.
And she stopped it. And then I was in the police department at the time. And what they would do was stop traffic on West Oak Street, which they weren't allowed to do, to cross over to get to the other side of the highway.
Because it was ground
And
level.
I used to sit there with a police car. When the truck came over, I'd stop him.
Oh my God. But, so what was that? That was like 10, it took what, like 10 years to put that together?
I don't remember
That
10
extension or
years.
something like that?
It's like any highway, it was construction, but it went on for a while, but I don't think 10 years. I don't remember 10 years in it, but it was, in fact, all the houses from my house down are over on Conklin Street.
Mhm.
Jimmy Henry bought them. He owned property over there. For $1 a house, he took them over there, and he built all of the whole street. All of Conklin Street, a lot of the houses are from West Oak Street that were moved.
Oh, they were moved.
They moved them, well, it was
I
perfect,
didn't know that.
because it was cleared out.
Jimmy,
They cleared it and leveled it for a whole road, and Jimmy just took them off and went on the dirt there, and took them up to Conklin.
There was no overhead wires to worry about.
No wires, no nothing, it was a simple move, and he
He
had,
did that over to a lot of houses.
yes, he did, Jimmy, he was pretty smart.
Becker's house was not.
Who was that, Jimmy who?
Jimmy Henry.
Henry.
He was a lawyer here, and he was in the township committee. I was in the environmental commission with him. He was the head of and I was environmental at
I don't think
AT&T,
so.
so
I don't
I
think it's
joined
the
him,
same
but
Henrys.
we couldn't do a
But
thing.
they're all
You can't do, environmentally, the builders got all the rights, and we couldn't stop them from doing anything. And I just got off it. I said, this is no good. This
So
doesn't work.
you just mentioned something about AT&T. A lot of people, I've written these pieces about what I refer to as the top 10 historic things that happened in this area, like the Somerset Hills area. And there's a lot of people that treat Basking Ridge as, well, there's basically 2 Basking Ridges. There's before AT&T and after AT&T. It seemed to be for the guys that I guess were in high school in the 50s, 60s, said that was just a huge defining moment in the changeover from what's I actually got into these arguments on Facebook where people were giving me a lot of crap because some of the locals that were graduating high school were saying, well, you got to understand, we were we were like a bunch of, they referred to themselves as hayseeds. We were a bunch of hayseeds living out here in the country, and then all of a sudden in comes this, power company,
Well, look at it this
AT&T,
way.
and changed the dynamic forever. What's your,
I'm in the Basking
What do you
Ridge
know
Fire
about that?
Company, I've been in 53 years.
right?
I couldn't tell you one fireman in Somerville Fire Department, because the watch on range goes through here. Everything this side of Somerset County we went to Morristown, and we did things north and west of here, but not south. I couldn't tell you anybody in Somerville, and I'm friends with them now but once they put the highways, it opened up everybody coming north. The only highway that went north was 206.
Right.
And that was a 2-lane highway, and that couldn't have, so when the highway came through, and then 78 came the other way, it just changed the complex of people getting in here. Now people could get into Bernards Township. Before, they had to go over the mountain.
But he's thinking about AT&T.
Yeah, well, AT&T bought it because it was cheap land. I'm sure
They bought all up the corridor.
Oh my
Yeah, so,
goodness.
and they bought it. I worked for them, that's what I worked
And
for.
there was direct access from AT&T onto 287, which was a major thoroughfare that took them up to 80 or down to
Well,
78.
you gotta remember, they can go to 78 and go down to the high. Now, when we used to go to the airport, that was brutal. 222 was terrible. You never knew whether you were gonna make your plane. Because you got to about Hillside, it could come to a screeching stop. 2-lane highway or 4-lane through there, but it was terrible. It was a terrible highway. It just brutal.
It still is.
And
Oh,
it
yeah.
still is a terrible highway. But once you open 78, man, you could be in 45 minutes at Newark Airport, 50 minutes, and you're there. Otherwise, it was an hour and a half.
So I'll give you an example like today, when they had the changeover of AT&T. I think Pfizer had bought the building, and then they in turn sold it to Verizon.
They never got in it.
They never got in,
They
right?
never went in.
So I just recognized this the other night, and I just didn't really notice the depth of the issue. When Verizon came in, there's been talk locally that they just increased the head count by 1,500 people up there at that facility. So it's now went from 3,500, I think, to 5,000. Anyway, 445 to 515. Southbound on Maple, non-stop. Non-stop, bumper-to-bumper cars, except when that light on Madisonville Road changes. Otherwise, you are not getting a car in the southbound road. Now, in the morning, it's reversed the northbound side. They must be coming up, cutting down from Cross, like the line of cars, cutting over from Stonehouse up to Cross, back up to Maple, and then straight in, non-stop. And I was just wondering if there was this big discussion about when Verizon was going to come back to town and move up from Virginia and everything. It was going to be a big boom for Basking Ridge. The housing market was going to go up. All the jobs were there. Everybody in town and all the food places were like, oh, there's going to be thousands. But what ended up happening was the people that were living in southern Virginia came up here and found out the housing prices were just so high that they all moved out to Annandale, Pennsylvania, all the way out to Pennsylvania. No boom at all, right? So I'm just curious, when AT&T initially came to town, was that the beginning of a building boom here?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
That was the catalyst.
Every
that-
man that came to AT&T, and I worked in AT&T, they worked there 3 years and were sent back to their box, which are the different, New England town. But everybody had to pay their dues. They had to come in to Ma Bell and work. And that, if you want to get promoted and go on, you had to come in here for 3 years, work at AT&T here with Ma Bell, the headquarters, and then you were sent back to your box, and then you were go on from there. But everybody, so the housing market turned over every 3 years.
Wow. I never knew that.
Well, and every year, because different people came at different times.
Right.
So the market was just rolling. If you were in real estate during the years when AT&T was here, you made a lot of money.
They did.
It made a lot of money. The real estate people
Wow.
was just, they were just, I was selling real estate here. And I had a place out off of Valley Road there was a little road. And it was like 37,000 or 38,000 the house was for. And the guy said, that's way too much, that's stupid. I said, buy it, it'll be worth way more than that. And he, no, I'm not gonna do it. So he did come back. 6 months later, he came back to me and said, I want to buy a house up there now. I said, well, you got $60,000?
Oh,
He says, no. I said, that's what the houses are going for there. I told you that the price was gonna go up, and they did. And it was a lot of money. Not a little money, a lot of money.
The houses over at Juniper, when they were being built, is when I moved to town. And you could have had any one of them, and some of them are pretty big, $35,000. Now, you're lucky you can get from $750. And when they are buying them, which they are doing, they're buying two of them, knocking them down and building up one.
oh, jeez, yeah. I think the median home price now is $550 in town.
And it's
For
been.
Berners Township, yeah. Somewhere around $550. Taxes,
That's nothing.
22,000, I think, is the average.
What's the average?
Average, I think it's 22 grand.
Thank God I haven't got that house.
Isn't that amazing?
But then all these.
But that's actually in the last decade. But that's been like in the last 10 to 15 years, it's gone
Oh, it's jumping.
insanely crazy.
What were you gonna say?
Thank you.
I saw you.
Yeah, I know, you do it deliberately, you practice that. All these people that are moving out because of our taxes. I'm from Jersey Central Power and Light, and we had our parking lot. You would go out in the parking lot, probably at least a third of the cars were from Pennsylvania, because they can buy a cheaper house out there and get more house. But they don't realize our taxes, a lot of it's included. Their taxes, they're nickel and dimed. And a 3-hour drive in is, my time is worth that. So our taxes maybe are high, but we get a lot for it, if only the location.
They were saying, somebody had told me, a realtor had told me that for every mile you come out from like, I think like 22 out at like Scotch Plains, and you start going west, they say for every mile you go, you reduce your cost of house on average, they say, by whatever unit they were using, by $1,000. So every mile it was like $1,000
Well, it sounds like a stretch to me there. I'm not sure I believe
I
that.
can understand the graduation.
Yeah, I can,
I'm
but not
sure
every
that-
mile. The mile.
No, I mean, it's just, they were using a metaphor
Yeah.
about
Oh, okay.
the further out you go, the more you can get.
Yeah, but that's
obviously,
even changed. You
for your
gotta
money.
remember something. Hunterdon County was rural when I was, and I'm talking really country. Well, what happened is Berners Township, our taxes were going up. And people were running to Harding Township, except for one thing. They had no schools, no police
They had no
department,
taxes.
no sewer system.
They had
And
no
that's gotta come. Now it's coming, and their taxes are going.
Yeah.
See, now we got a sewer system here, and we got a school system finally. We're not building more schools anymore, or so far, let's put it that way. But for a long while, people would go out there and they were really living good because the taxes were low. Now the taxes are skyrocketing out there because they gotta build schools.
Yeah.
And we had to build schools too. We had to go through the,
So the build boom that you guys obviously experienced, I mean, now, obviously there's been a decline. What do you think, what is your thought living down off Stonehouse
I'm on
With-
Haas Road.
with the quarry? How do you feel about the whole quarry story? Do you know, are you keeping up on it?
Well, I used to own a house, but before the quarry.
Yeah.
We finally ended up selling it. We couldn't get along with the quarry at all, so we ended up selling it.
Right.
But now with this, I really don't understand much about this. I don't understand. Is it really sold, or is it going to be sold to this, what's the name of that company?
Millington
I
Quarry,
don't
you
know.
mean?
Oh, cool.
Selling it to some
That-
developer?
That's part
Elias
of,
wants to sell it to
Oh, what's the name
Anthony
of that?
Splendoro.
Oh, they want to sell it to a developer.
Yes.
Well,
Right.
yeah, but the person that wants to buy it is the owner of
Back to Nature, and he built the Willow School.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know, someone
He
says
has
already
not
sold.
purchased it yet. I mean, I was
Well,
just
I
at the
don't
meeting.
know, see, that's. the
He
thing.
hasn't, because he's waiting for the okay that
He'll never get the okay.
well, he's waiting for the condemnation for it to be clean. So he's waiting for that
Well, it's done,
certificate.
isn't it?
Well, no,
So that's
not
our-
quite. So once that gets its approval, then he would like to purchase the property. Now, the assessed value, because it was zoned mining, it was assessed at what the taxes that VMQI pays are 4.5 million. That's what it's assessed at. Although, they're selling it for $20 million.
I was gonna call Gary and find out what was he selling it for. I was gonna.
20 million. So he wants to sell it to the Back to Nature guy for 20 million. And he's presented the proposal to the township committee that it would have the 250 room hotel, 235 homes that are in cluster
I think
zoning,
it's ridiculous. I think it's
150 square
ridiculous.
feet of retail,
What do you
office
think about it?
space.
What do you think about it?
It's in my backyard, just the light pollution will be awful.
No, the traffic and everything, I can't.
You know, I'm in
believe it.
Homestead Village, so, you know, I'll just have to look at the perennial pink glow at night.
But the
so.
Virtual News wasn't delivered for 2 days. I don't know if it's delivered now, but I want to find out what happened at the
No,
meeting.
there's still going to be, there's still several meetings throughout the month of December, which, as the Stop the Quarry movement has said, why do we have to rush into this? I think there's more information that needs to be, you know, that the public has to know about it, because the public, up until October, still was under the assumption that it was 2-acre zoning and that they were going to build 40 homes. That's what the public thought until the
Did you
beginning
think
of
it-
October.
So what is the process now? Is it a plan, a proposal?
It's a proposal, nothing, yes, but nothing's been finalized at this point.
Right.
I think he's smart like a fox. Well, I'll tell you why, he's asked for 240 houses. Probably knows he's not gonna get 240 houses. He knows what he really wants to do. But he's gotta go above because they're gonna take him down. And he knows that they're gonna.
So they're
you
gonna
know,
shoot
so-
high and then take them
You know,
down?
so you shoot high and then they take it down. But the problem I think you're gonna be faced is there's a piece of property. And you can't make a person just own property because you don't want more houses in there. And somehow you're gonna have to, there's gonna be something in there, no matter what happens. Because you can't force a man to say, you can't build there at all, you just got to own it, pay $3 million a year on taxes. It's not gonna happen. And he'll have a right, he'll be able to take that to court and blow it out of the, so what you've gotta do is look for what the best thing you can get usage of it that will help the town, not hurt it.
How many
Because-
houses are down the street, you think, in the Barrens?
Barron's isn't that big.
Not big.
But-
What about
No,
Society?
He's not gonna build $800,000 or $900,000 houses in it. He's gonna build 2 million houses, 2 million, 100, million and a half houses.
There was some affordable house you had to throw in, like a.
Well, you throw that in,
It's
that's
gonna be a
fitness
city by
store.
itself there.
Yes.
It's just ridiculous.
Yes.
But I'm gonna call Gary, I'm gonna
You
call and
should.
find out.
You should.
Well,
But
see,
it's
we
not a
just-
done deal. Jack Gray, who's, works in town and is an environmentalist, he spoke the other night and proposed that, that because we have a triple, A rating bond, our rating, that we should purchase a bond and buy it from, MQI and just leave it. I mean, the lake itself, once it fills in, will be 50 acres. So.
It was a beautiful lake at one time.
So it'll, to let it revert back to that, it's 180 acres, it's the largest parcel of continuous land that we have in the town at this point. So a lot of people felt that if we purchased it and then just basically left it for open space, it would be a beautiful piece of property, and that we will never have any property, there will never be another piece of property that large again in Berners Township.
Well,
So it's going from one extreme,
To
like
the other.
a little mini city, to
Correct.
I know,
nothing, leave it alone. Wow.
but Gary's a pretty nice guy, though. but we had more fights with him because we rented a house right on his section there.
On the
But
backside.
we had lots of fights with him. But the thing is, I bought our property for $3,000 on Haas Road, 5 acres, it's gorgeous. We go to the river, I have a pond on my property too, but $3,000, can you imagine that? Of course, what, 50, how many years ago, Jimmy? About 50
What's that?
years ago, our property. And the house cost us like maybe $20,000 to build.
Mhm.
So we're just so fortunate at that time.
Wow. Wow.
At the rate the taxes are going, my house is gonna, I'll pay more in taxes than I bought my house for.
Isn't that amazing?
You know, then it gets to be kind of a,
But the thing is, things are really crazy now, I think. But my neighbor, where he pays, I think, almost $29,000 in taxes. No, did he say 25? 25, I think, he pays in taxes. So,
But obviously, there's something that keeps you here.
oh, I was born here, so I'm never leaving. I don't care.
You're the same way.
yeah, I was born
We're never
here. I
leaving.
was born in
I should have told
Old
Jamie.
Souls Hospital over
Hey,
here,
shut up.
which is the
Well, do it.
Morristown Rehab.
Oh, yeah,
And
right
if you
there.
look at the 3 buildings there, there's a big building in the middle, a building to the left, a building to the right. And up at the top it says maternity. That's where I was born.
Yeah.
That was the hospital. That's where I used to take in the first aid squad people. We didn't mark them. There's nothing like it is today. We went to Old Souls Hospital. That was a better hospital. And I went in there one time, there was only one doctor in the emergency room. We'd just done CPR on this guy. Next thing I know, I'm hooking veins with this guy and helping him do everything, because we were the only guys there. And we saved his life. We actually brought him back to life. He walked out of there alive, but
Wow.
he wasn't breathing when I got to the golf course where we found him, and we did and I just learned CPR that week. Just went to a CPR course and learned it that week. It was like Easter Sunday, and the whistle went off, and I said to my wife, "See, God doesn't want me in here." So I went and answered the first aid call, and there's this guy falling out of his car and starting to turn blue. And I started doing CPR, just learning. In those days, you did mouth to mouth for real. That was really mouth to mouth. And he was, the nose was running, you had to wipe and clean it. It was, and we brought him back to life till we got him.
Wow.
And then I thought, boy, this really works. It's only about 5% effective. It's not really a vile thing, but if you're the 5% we save, then you're happy.
Yeah.
And I can name a couple of people, like up here, Howard Courtney, where the old blacksmith shop used to be. He had a gas station on the street there, thing. And he had a heart attack and stopped breathing. We got him, and we were doing CPR, and the doctor said, "You can stop now because he's gone." And we said, "We're going to try a little longer." We kept doing it, and we got him back there.
Oh my gosh.
And he said, "Don't ever get that doctor for me."
Yeah, really.
Oh my gosh.
Call that doctor.
Holy
But my
smokes.
husband and Mr. Levito,
Mhm.
another fellow, built the recording first aid squad.
Right.
Every week we were there. I mean, we were able to see him and talk to him because we never saw them. They were building, and there was really a lot of work that went into that building.
Wow.
It was beautiful, really.
So what do you two miss the most that's not here anymore? Anything?
I have adjusted very well, and I don't look back in the past and say I wish, because if you saw the center of Basking Ridge at one time, and even Liberty Corner, they were old little towns. They were just little, they weren't pretty, they weren't, the paint, now they paint all the buildings and they put the gingerbread on them and they make them look great. I mean, the town actually looks classier than it did when I was a kid. There was 2 old ladies living up the street. The whole porch was wisteria. It was beautiful when it was, purple, but it was rotting. I can always remember. But the 2 ladies, she had high buckle shoes. There was 2 people around that had high buckle shoes, and her and her sister both had
Must
the
have been a bar club.
still had high buckle shoes on. But they were there, and there was just little stores. There was nothing of great. You could play in the middle of the street at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. There wasn't anything here.
Really, no traffic.
Nothing. And so do I miss that? Well, not particularly. It wasn't, it was, and it looks very nice. The town looks very nice now because people get money for their buildings. And So they're gonna spruce them up, and make them better. So and they asked George Washington, how do you like Basking Ridge now? He used to go down to Lord Sterling and then, well, he would say, well, you know, they really changed it. All these motor cars going through, you know. I don't really have a problem with it. I've lived here. I live right by the railroad station. And the only thing I dislike now is the horns. I guess they had so many people getting killed on trains.
Yeah,
Now they're tooting the horn louder, longer, and they put new horns on. And you hear more.
Yeah, I lived on the tracks on Spencer Road.
All of
here,
a sudden, the noises.
You hear that horn.
And I've lived there 50 years, and all of a sudden, that when they blow it.
When they cross the streets,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
have to blow a horn.
Yep, and so it's,
That's true.
but I think the town is done very well. I think that it's a town that's
It has
progressed.
really.
You know, and, I mean, I go out there by Rebel Hill and all that over there on Mount Airy Road. We used to drag race on that street. There was nobody there. You know, did I like? Yeah, it was great then. But it is what it is. And the people, and there's a lot of nice people that moved into town. So I don't know. I adjusted with it. I don't mind it.
It's funny, you brought that up, that there was, Tom Fitzsimmons mentioned this to me the other day. He said, local guy, well, since the 70s. AT&T guy. He said, you know, Brooks, it's amazing. When I moved here, this was just in, I think he said 1972. He said, did you know there were only 3 lights in town in 1972? And one of them was right here, a blinking light.
Frank Wolski took that out. That's who did it.
Did you know there was so that was one
And
light.
That was a blinking light.
It was
Yeah,
a blinking
That was a
light.
blinking red and orange light. That's all it was.
Why would they take that down?
Because it cost them money, and they said they wanted to take it out.
Cost them money to run
That's
it?
all that Frank told me, because I didn't agree with him. I said, Frank, because he was head of traffic. And I said, Frank, why did you take that out? At least it slows everybody down
Yes.
in the center of town. He said, well, it cost us, in the days he took it down, town wasn't a real problem with the traffic.
Yeah,
But he said it cost the town money. They had to pay for that light, and they wanted it out of there, so they took it. But it was a blinking light there.
I think that, what was the other one? He said
Charles
there,
told me, I'm
The-
sorry.
the
oh, there was
Bill
one at Valley Road, because he said it ended. I know he said there was one down over there, and I think your other one was
Well,
right.
the first
Was
one-
it 287? Was it by the old mill inn?
Oh, no, that was before 287, long before 287.
Yeah, because he
That
said
was
he
the
got
only light in town,
directions.
the 202.
And he said they used to say, hey, get off. He was coming up from the south. He said, hey, get off at 287. Take this, go to the light, and turn right, and come down. We're down on Maple. But what happened was, between the time he had come the first time, they then opened up that extension. So he went up to the next exit, got off, turned at the light, and ended up in like Morristown. Had to find a phone and said, wait, you told me to turn right at the light.
I'm just saying, when you told us that, I'm saying right goes to Mars.
And he's like,
I should have said something.
what do you mean? He goes, oh, that's right. They opened up the stretch of 287. You went all the way to the end again, didn't you? Oh, now you're up at 18. You know,
Yeah,
you're,
where, what? They weren't even there.
yeah, you're
We had
all
a
the
lot
way
of-
up there. And he's like, oh, I'm lost. He goes, no,
We
you're
had a lot
really
of
not that far.
bad accidents there, because the people are ripping down a highway, coming like hell, doing, 70 miles an hour. Then all of a sudden, it's an off-ramp. We had tractor trailers turn over there. I'll never get the
Because it
time.
just ended.
Charles told me where you live, and that's a beautiful.
Oh,
area.
yeah, I know.
And
My
that-
girlfriend's lived
And we
there.
had a tanker turn over there, we were fighting fire down there. And if you put water on it, it only made the fire burn.
And right as you go.
And we had a fireman fall into the fire.
How they knocked
And
down.
went into the-
Oh, Seal's house.
We had to send them to the
Yeah,
Oh
hospital.
my gosh.
Well, if the
was
people
the
really in
first-
this town
I
didn't
think hers
understand
was
I
one
mean,
of the
just
first
the amount
houses.
of traffic accidents.
Yeah, I was
287 and
sad.
78,
Do you want to
the volunteers have to take care
Yeah,
of,
well.
Yeah.
is
No, we're-
mind-boggling.
We had,
I'll give you some, I'll just give you.
Mine.
well, a long time, it's
Yeah, her
quiet
house
down
was
south.
really, really
When I was in the
nice.
first aid and in the fire, and I'm still in it, But when I was riding,
And then
we
Lois
had
Martin,
more
you know,
fatals, there
Lois
was more
Martin.
fatals
Oh, yeah.
between
But that's my
Bedminster
favorite.
and
I
Harding
thought that
Township.
was the neatest
But it went down to
little
two,
That's
four, it was a
She,
four-lane road. But it went down, it was
When
three
Lois-
up to that
When
point.
she had to
And then
sell,
when
she
it
was
got out of there, it
selling
became
after her
three more
husband
lanes
passed away.
up
She
above.
was still working
We
for
had
Barnes
more
Builders.
fatal
And
accidents.
I was talking to her on the phone.
If I told you the glory
I
things
felt so
that
bad 'cause
happened,
she's-
I
and that,
I could just
her husband passed
imagine.
away,
and we were,
and she said,
the
"I'm
best
gonna
one I
live-
ever had though,
I'm gonna move
truck
to
turned
Florida
over.
with my brother."
I don't know how bad, the truck driver wasn't hurt, he was hurt somewhere. But there it was laying over, and every kind of bad sticker on it that it could have, placards, all things wrong. And there we are in our coat and our boots and our helmet. And we're all looking at the back of the truck and we said,
The Burnsville
I'm just
Library.
gonna go in there and find out
what
if there's anything loose.
Okay.
And we all know it was bad stuff.
It's so neat.
And we're all
I-
debating,
I
we're
love
standing
it.
there, trying to figure who's gonna be the guy that gets up there. And all of a sudden, a state trooper
My
comes through.
grandson went to
And
the.
he goes, what's the matter? I said, well, we're trying to figure out, somebody's gotta go up there. He says, he goes like this,
Which one?
and it says hazmat.
Oh,
He
really?
said, I'll go up.
Like hotels.
Oh, Kenwood
Let the
Court.
canary go up, let him go up, because we're gonna watch. What a fool he
And
was.
they were
Absolute
My son had to
fool.
take him.
We had coats and boots,
I'm sure
and
there's
they
some-
wouldn't have
and
protected us.
everything.
Scott
Be there
airbags
to
on,
pick 'em up. They
and
were
it
very,
wouldn't
very
protect us from
strict.
this stuff,
Right.
if it was over and
Okay.
going in there. And we
They're
knew
so
that.
big, I can't picture
This
it
guy
right now.
has me
I
going
know.
But
hazmat.
someone said, you
Bands
know,
and big
I was talking to Mayor.
I couldn't believe him.
So I forget what I was telling
I
you.
said,
I'm
let the
looking at
fool
that house.
go
I
up there,
said,
he climbed right up there.
unbelievably
I
beautiful.
said, because he was a state trooper,
Right.
he gets his
You know
lip
what
down,
that
and
I said, no.
nothing can hurt
His
him or
house is
something.
across the street from
But
my
I
road
could
down
never
the shore
believe
in
it. I said, we
Logan.
may be pulling him
The
out of
Logan
there.
It's a mansion, and the biggest boat.
So you were part of the volunteer
Yeah,
fire department?
Still
Still
are.
are? The Basking Ridge one?
You told me.
still in there.
But his house,
I've
you weren't
had
together.
53 years.
And these guys can
Tremendous.
still
The biggest
maintain,
boat, I think, in the
I mean,
whole area.
they've been volunteers since
But
day
I
one.
really
How many,
did
how many
the girl- he's
firemen are
just
on
watching.
the,
They moved here, watch.
on the volunteer?
Ah,
Do they need Okay, so the siren,
Of course.
you're down on
The
Washington,
homes
right?
are getting bigger.
And I live on Oak
That's the only
Street.
thing. Okay.
And that siren still goes off. Why? So there's one horn, and then I know there's two horns. One's for
What-
EMS,
What are
and
we talking about?
Two is for first aid.
two is for first aid, and one is
And
for.
five
Why
is
does
for
that
fire.
horn still go?
You have to maintain an emergency siren in your town. It goes back to the civil defense, goes
Sure.
back to the, and with North Korea doing what it's doing, we may need even improve it, because now Hawaii's practicing, I saw the other day on TV, they're practicing all their emergency.
Alright.
So it was always, in the old days, they would test them every 6 o'clock every day.
I miss
The
that.
whistle would
I
blow.
miss the whistle at 6 o'clock.
They blew a
You
whistle.
miss it.
I miss it. Because it would be, you could be working outside
and you
and you,
know.
and you go, oh, whistle, it's 6 o'clock. Or the kids would know, if
That
the
was
whistle went out, it was
required
time to
by
go.
law to do that. Then they got away, they stopped doing it. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually get a missile like in America. They're gonna have to go back to the emergency whistle thing.
I would be happy.
So you miss the whistle.
I miss the whistle, I do,
They're
because
gonna
you
have to
just,
go back and get louder horns and louder whistles to do it.
Now, does the whistle go off over there, and it also simultaneously goes off at the high school,
Yeah, yes,
town hall?
yes.
So you have a
Town
dual
hall.
zone?
Town hall, they fought us, and they said it was too loud, so that's why it sounds like a duck now and hardly blows at all.
The one over here?
Well, none of them blow. They got them fixed so they don't make noise.
Really?
Yeah.
So they're quieter than they were?
Because
If we
people
go
complain.
back to it, they're gonna probably get in trouble because the whistle doesn't blow loud enough to alert anybody. I don't even hear, I can hear it all the time from my house. And I don't even live on Turner Street, and by the station, and I don't hear it. A lot of times I don't hear it. My ear is so attuned to it, because when I came on the fire department, we only had a whistle. I tell you, and I lived on West Oak Street, I had to leave my window open at night so I could hear the whistle. And you mentally
right.
get attuned to it. And if I didn't do that, my mother always heard it, some reason. And
She's
yell at
getting
me.
you up.
I know,
she'd
I
get
know
me
that
up,
6
but-
o'clock whistle.
But
I like those.
then we went to the plectrons, now we got very sophisticated. and things, and, you know, that people can carry it on. But it's still for people that may be just walking it down, and I didn't put it on my belt, I didn't put my pager on. I hear the whistle blowing, but it was, when I first got on, it was just a whistle. And when you got to the firehouse, you ran in, you picked up the phone would be ringing, and you'd pick the phone up, and it was Garabrandt Funeral Home. And because there was always somebody for the funeral there, so they answered their phone. And they would tell us where the fire is, or the first aid call is, and we would write it on a board. But I'll tell you how bad it was. We were so fast in those days that the guy answering the phone, if I wrote Culberson Road, the guy in the truck would go out and leave me standing there. So I used to put my hand over it and write it, hang up, and then I'd say Culberson Road and run for the truck to jump on the back of it. So I could write the truck.
One of the-
wouldn't leave.
I was gonna say, I have a question.
Go. No, I was just gonna end with
Okay,
this because
go
one of the local firemen showed me the app that they have today. Have you seen it?
No,
So they have an app now when the call goes,
right?
like we were literally over off Spencer Road, hear the horn go off. He lives over on Decker. He's sitting down in the basement on Spencer. He brings up the app and he can just see where all the firemen are, and then he can just press the button and see which guys, like a flag flips that says they're responding. So he knows immediately who's responding and who hasn't, and then he can determine whether
He
he
should call
needs to
somebody.
respond
Right.
or get more guys to respond. And it's all on an app, and you can see where they are, and he just goes, yeah, I don't need to go to that one. There's already like 6 guys going. It's pretty neat. I thought it was, the technology is very cool, how they work today. Anyway,
So my question, because they both grew up in town here, okay? They still live in town here. So my question to you is that you both have children. Do your children, have they decided to move someplace else if it's not for convenience or a job? Or have they moved out of town because they can't afford to live in the town?
Well,
That's my
Charles
question.
lives in.
Well, he lives in California. But he still has
He loves
business.
it. I would never live there.
Yeah,
We're trained, California.
California. But did he move out there when he first got married? He moved to California?
Yeah.
So he left Basking Ridge and said, I'm moving further out
He's got a lot of
because
land,
I
one
want
out
more
there. Yeah.
property, I can get more.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's,
I can tell you Basking Ridge. My children moved, my daughter moved out to Pennsylvania. My son moves all over the place, so I don't know. But he's a state forest firefighter. And
okay.
he's gone to all fires all over the country, to California, to Oregon, to Idaho, to Missouri, Florida. He fights fires all over the country. He gets called out for 16 days, is all they can go out for. And he's fought the big fires. Remember when California was burning?
Yep,
And he just showed me how he fought fire right out of Oregon into California. And he fights fires there. In Montana, he fought fire. The Bitterroot was on fire, the section. And-
so he's moved and he travels because of
But
the
but
profession he has.
He could do that. He has regular jobs, but he leaves the job for 16 days
Oh,
and goes to bosses. And he's got a job now with a boss that he's pretty sure they'll let him go. They work it like military.
Now,
But
where does he live
The thing I
now?
see in the Basking Ridge Fire Company
Mhm.
today, that we train these young men and they come in, and lately we have really gotten some really great young men coming out of high school. And they go with us for 4 or 5 years. They go to college, and then all of a sudden they get a job in Texas. They get one in Florida. We just lost a couple of good. We don't. Only a few stay. Only a few stay home. If they don't live with their parents, they can't live here. They can't make enough money.
So the
to
next
stay.
generation is basically being forced out because they can't
They
afford
can't afford
to
to
live.
live here. Well, it's not, sometimes it's not even that. The jobs just aren't,
Okay.
so they take a job. My day, everybody lived around here, they
Right.
worked, a lot of the town businessmen, Bobby Brush right up the street here. His father was in it, he worked in the place there. Rocco across the street, the barber, his son-in-law worked in the fire company. The people lived and worked in town. And so, and the Sereno brothers that were over here way early on, they were in the fire company. But the people can't do that anymore. You leave your business, people come in, where are you? Well, I was on a fire call. Well, it wasn't my house on fire, so they, I'm not going back to that place.
The mindset for business is different also. I'm from Jersey Central Power and Light. That was one of those cradle to death jobs. You started right out of high school or college, and you retired from it. There was a loyalty for the employees and a loyalty from the company. There is not that loyalty anymore.
Well, look
Maybe
around,
JCP&L.
look around town.
Didn't I say that?
Well, no, you said it, but so JCP&L doesn't have.
Not any-
Okay.
Not
But look
anymore.
around town. Do you see anybody with a jacket with the logo of their business on? In my day, I was proud to have AT&T jacket on. People would see IBM, they'd have their IBM. They the power and light company. Guys would walk around, go to ShopRite and have their jacket on from the company. You name one time you've seen anybody with
Well,
a
my
jacket
husband works for
with their
Tampy,
company
his stuff,
logo
everything
on
says
it.
Tampy on it.
You know, you don't, it's gone.
My-
Unless you think that everybody works for Old Navy.
Yeah, right, yeah. But you know what I'm saying? It's, you
Or the
know,
Rangers.
I thought it was a big deal to wear an AT&T
Right.
jacket. I worked
I
for
mean-
AT&T, my
Well,
father
I'll tell you, my-
worked for AT&T his whole life.
The
I'm
o-
sorry. Go ahead. Go, no,
I
I'm
say my
finished.
grandkids love Basking Ridge.
But will they be able to afford to stay here?
Well, I don't know, but they just love Basking Ridge.
Right. I mean, the only ones I know, Tina and Jay Bramall, and, you know, Tina's like, I think she was a Bruno or what.
Yes, she was.
Right. So Tina, you know, marries Jay, also local guy. You know, they have two girls, and they're lucky enough that both their daughters live in Basking Ridge, and that I think is really
That's
unusual.
unusual.
It's
It is.
unusual today.
Very unusual.
That, you know, she's, you know, her granddaughters are, you know, fourth or fifth generation Bernards Township, and, you know, the funny thing will be for them, you know, she grew up here, has never lived anywhere but Basking Ridge, her daughters have lived in Basking Ridge, now they have families. Will that next generation be able to afford to, if they choose to stay in Bernards Township? I mean, I know my daughter, when, you know, she got married and they were looking at houses, they couldn't afford to live in Bernards Township. I mean, luckily they live in
Right.
New Providence, so my grandkids are
Well,
close,
maybe
but,
job choices too now.
Yeah,
You
that's
see,
what it is.
it's not even that they can't afford, they get a job offer way away from here. I grew up with there was 5 boys in my family. There's just 2 of us left in town. My one brother was a landscaper, so his job was here, so that was fine. I worked for AT&T. I went down there and worked in AT&T. So I stayed here, and I've never left the town, and I've always worked in town. I worked in the Somerset Hills Bank, and did odd things in between, but I basically stayed here. No reason, I just stayed here, it just happened that way. But most people will have to move out and look for jobs. And the kids got a variety of places to go and get great jobs. So they do it, and they don't stay here.
My grandkids, they used to love Basking Ridge, but they're from California, but they love Basking Ridge.
But the thing is, if somebody offers them a good job, they may take it and move and go, and so you just don't know. You know, it's
You go where the work is, yeah.
But do we
Wow, that's
want to not have the wealthy people come in also? It sounds blue collar snobbish.
We
almost.
were all blue, this whole town was blue collar.
Oh, absolutely, but
And
it's
it's
not
changed
anymore.
totally, it's all white collar.
No, not all.
And I don't like the term
I'm
particularly,
still blue
because
collar.
that's pigeonholes people into things that they may not really be. But right now, we don't have the carpenters. We had carpenters and plumbers and electricians in the firehouse. We could do anything at our firehouse.
Right.
We had people that could go and repair the firehouse. We don't have one plumber, one carpenter left. They're gone.
Because they're the rich people right
They're
now.
not down here. They're not here anymore. They don't
Florida.
live in town. But electricians starting out now is not gonna make $1 million. he's gonna make a living, just like, he's gonna start at 40 or 50,000, work his way up, but it's gonna take him a lot. We just don't have it anymore. It's not here.
They were saying though, on average though, people, in order to really survive in this area, yeah, you have to have whether it's a single income or a dual income, it's roughly about 150 grand a year.
Well, I guess I gotta move.
Or you buy in,
Well, I think, yeah.
you buy in cheap,
Yeah.
but I think that again, this is the dynamic that a lot of the towns struggle with. I mean, I grew up in Westfield, and I'm amazed the retention rate that the daughter, the son of the growing up there, I think their return rate is like 65% of the kids that graduate end up moving back to that town, to Westfield.
And that,
Wow.
Very high.
Westfield.
Yeah, it's a
That's
very
a nice
high retention rate.
and that is going to happen here also as education fosters these kids that are coming out.
It has not.
One of the top, it will. One of the top 25 high schools in the nation. They're putting out great minds. These great minds, I quote unquote on that one, are going to be able to get better jobs, and they will be able to afford to come back here. It's some of us that are, blue collar people that we're not good. Our kids maybe aren't going to.
I disagree. Here's why.
Okay.
Only because, think about it this way. I know a lot of people in town that their kids don't cut the grass. They don't even know how to cut the grass. They don't even have toolboxes. Blows my mind. Can't even fix a door handle. Can't fix a doorbell. They just hire someone to do it. So there's actually, and this goes true to like Bernardsville and Old Mountain Ideas, there are services to support, and you'll see in this town, if you look up and down the street here, just in your main street of town, think about how many of them are retail versus how many of them are services. So for example, we call it the Amazon effect. How is the Amazon effect going to affect downtowns? Now in Westfield, it's killing it. Chester, killing it. Have you seen those like little stores around Chester? They're all empty. Now the Gymborees and the I don't know, whatever. All kinds of stores are closing up. You're not going to have the Amazon effect here in downtown Basking Ridge. Not going to have it. It's not going to be a problem. But in a lot of towns, it will. But in terms of the return, to get them to come back, I've talked to a lot of kids that just say, one, they talk about affordability. But the thing that they also talk about is this town also has this sort of darker underbelly to it, that a lot of kids don't want to come back. They don't
What's
want
this
to.
darker underbelly?
Maybe it's the misnomer, for example, of the 100% graduation rate, how the Asian community has actually faked this, built up the numbers for AP to make it smarter than it really is.
Who are you talking to with this? The kids?
The kids.
Okay.
And they know, for example, like AP, for example, the talk about, like we were just talking the other night about the autism, the issue with autism. And whatever the cause is, and everybody knows this, is Basking Ridge has a massive amount of autistic kids in the school system. I heard the numbers in the hundreds.
I never heard
Because
of that, but they have.
they're moving here
Because of
because
that, I
we
know people
provide
the training.
the services
Sure, that's right.
in the school system to do it. So it's actually, if you build it, they will come. Now, are autistic kids better for the curve, or are they worse for the curve? Because the educators look to that curve to determine if you're a top 5% school, an AP school, which is really what drives our number. So a lot of the kids, you know, when you think like they say like 90, I think it's like 90-something% go on to college. But how many of them after the first year don't go,
Well, they come back or
continue to go to college? It's actually
I don't know that fact. Do you
way
know, do you
down.
know that?
Way down.
It's way higher, that the dropout rate is way higher than you'd imagine.
Are they dropping out of college altogether, or are they coming back to go to a local college?
A variety.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Some are going to work, some are coming to go to community school, some didn't want to move away, some feel, there's a big element of the maturity factor with a certain demographic within one of the best high schools in the United States.
I
One of
think
the best
there's a
school
lot, I think
districts in
there's
the
a
United
lot, you know, in my.
So the school
youngest
system, just to
is-
wrap that up, is the school system actually has its pluses, but it also has its side for those that are graduating in it, that understand it.
But I think there's a lot of pressure for the kids in high school, at least in, my youngest is just graduating college, that they need to graduate to go to college, you know, it's almost unheard of in this town to think you're gonna graduate from high school and I'm gonna go get a job, or I'm not gonna go on for further education.
It's true, you're right.
Yeah, I got out of high school, I went right in the Army. Within
But
one
that
month I
wasn't
was-
uncommon, that was.
No, it wasn't uncommon those days because every guy had it looking at him. You didn't get away from the draft. All of us were number ones. Everybody but got drafted. I could go to college, the minute I get out of college, they'd draft me.
Okay.
And so, in fact, I always remember when I had my pediatrician, I'll never forget it. And he says, listen, don't forget me, I'm being drafted. And he got drafted. And he was my daughter's little girl's pediatrician. And he got drafted. They were pulling him in the Army. You went in the Army in my day. There was nobody got away from
Well, you
it.
should have been smart and joined the Navy.
No, I was smart. I got the outfit
You're
I
right,
wanted
there's a
to
lot of
be.
pressure for the kids.
There is.
There are actually
I got a
more-
grandson too now, one graduated, one's in junior.
How
So
can
I
anybody-
understand it.
How can anybody be so stupid as jump out of a perfectly good flying airplane? So I didn't get much of an education. If I didn't understand
And
jumping out of an airplane,
I'm
you'd
kind of
get
stupid also because I like to sleep with the windows open, and I was in a submarine.
Well, I wanted to go into submarines. That's the funny part. You talk about things, and I ended up jumping out of airplanes.
Oh.
Now, how can you go from one side to the other? But that's what I did.
Now, why did you move here?
My sister-in-law moved here.
What, do you love your sister-in-law?
No, yeah, that's a good point.
But she told
No,
me.
my sister-in-law moved here,
Must
and
be
we were
nice
living
to
in, she had been born and raised in Newark, in Valesburg,
Oh,
and
my
father
mom.
was a Newark cop, and they then moved to Springfield, and then she was living in Springfield. We bought a house in Springfield, because I couldn't afford to live in Westfield, so we bought this house in Springfield, a starter house. And the funniest story was, my sister-in-law said, you've got to come out, we call it come out here. You got to go out there. And I used to have my aunt used to live in Warren, and I used to go out there to go get chicken pot pies over it.
Sure you
That
did.
is-
And I was like, God, we got to go out there.
Everybody
again.
got to
Who wants to go way out there?
You know what? I didn't think they were that great.
I did not like them at all
Okay.
as a
They were
kid.
okay.
So I think that,
better.
but
I never thought they were that.
she said her story back to my wife was, you got to come out here and see these kids. And I said, what do you mean see the kids? Because you got to see how polite these kids are. These kids call everybody sir and ma'am and missus and whatever. They never, and my kids' friends are coming in like, hey Brooks, how's it going? What's up? In Springfield. And I'm just like, okay, I come out here and say, hello Mr. Betts, how are you? Nice to meet you. And I said, my wife was like, I love that. We're moving here. Get out of here. But I've moved 3 times in like 14 years in town. So I've gone Spencer Road to down off Mountain Road to now back on Oak Street. And I had both feelings, but my wife said, couldn't live over on 5 acres over in the woods because it was just like, you know, those bears running around and coyotes and it was always when you have 3 kids, I had 1 kid in each school, you know, one's at Liberty Corner, one's in Annan, one's in high school.
You gotta be close enough to run.
Oh my God, and they're in all athletics or sports or whatever, and Jill's driving 50 miles a day. 50 miles. Just,
Running around.
she was so angry. So it was funny, last night, have my daughter come in, get dropped off, helps at a volunteer event. She's finished. I said, you can go. Aren't you gonna give me a ride home? No. Why not? Because you live right down the street on Oak Street. Walk home. I don't want to walk home. That's too
I
far.
know they don't.
I go, well, then that's the only way you're getting home. She's like, all right, see you later. Bye, Dad. You know, she got home. But she has to tell me then, I lived. I just want to know that I lived. It was tough, but I lived. I said, oh, you didn't get a elevator.
The drama has to.
I lived. So, the amazing thing that I always am interested in is, like, kids today with bicycles. Like, as a kid, didn't you ride bikes?
I
You
know,
didn't live.
I was thinking that the other day.
You didn't live without a
Never seen
bicycle.
it
You didn't live without a bike.
My
right?
mother never took me. I would go way over to a friend's house, and my mother would talk to the lady and say, oh, he must really like your son. I went 3 or 4 miles, 5 miles to get over there. Because I knew my mother wasn't going to take me, and there was no way I was going to get there unless I got on a bicycle. And we went and biked. My father said he had 5 boys. He'd say to me, you know, if you guys want a bicycle, you better learn how to repair them. Because the only way you're going to make them go is you know how to fix. I could put a bicycle back in my sleep, and I used to change it all the time. Get spokes to the turn thing on the wheel to make sure I got more spokes in it, because it would go faster. If you hadn't been counted the spokes, we go up to the dump. The bicycles in there, we count them all around. Oh, that's got another. It'll make me go a little faster. We knew the whole thing of how to run a bicycle, because my father couldn't take care of 5 boys' bicycles. He'd be in the garage. That's what he'd be doing.
Speaking of bicycles, someone told me, it was Brush that told me, what was over here called, I think where the bike, I don't know whether he went and played on it, called like the Sand Hill?
Sand pit?
Sand Pit?
Sure, the
What was
sand
the
pit. I
sand
played
pit?
in the sand pit all my life.
What-
What it was a very coarse granite that was crumbled in the Ice Age. And the Ice Age ended here in Basking Ridge.
Yeah, well,
And it was a deposit of, it was a very coarse sand. And they used it for a little while, but it didn't work very well. In fact, my house was built out of it. And if you go in my cellar, you can run your fingers around all the stones, because it just comes all out. It's very poor, and that's where they used it from. But it was a sand pit where they mined it for a little while, because this Ice Age stopped here and dropped, you know, from all the way up north, all the way down. And this was a sand pit.
And where was it?
It was right behind, you know where the Basking Ridge Railroad Station is?
Yeah.
If you were to face the railroad station to the right of it, going up the hill, there's a housing development all up in there on the right-hand side. We used to ride our cars up there, and the police used to come up and go after us. We'd be riding cars in the field because that's legal. And I never forget, Babe Miller came up once up off of Washington Avenue, and it was right off Washington Avenue. He came up, and it's the back side of the cemetery. And he pulled the car in front of us. We were coming down the hill, and we couldn't stop because he pulled the car. Instead of hitting the police car, we rolled the car over a couple times. We got out and laughed, and he took us up in fact, he took me up to here, downstairs. He took me downstairs, and that was the police headquarters.
Oh, the police station
He was trying to
downstairs.
but he had nothing to stand on because it was private property, and we had permission to ride up there. So we rode cars. In our day, you could ride cars all over the place.
But no one knows about the sand pit.
But was that a pit or a hill?
It was a hill, but they dug it out. There was pits. There was places where they did mine it for a little while.
Okay.
In fact, my mother and father, when we said we're going to the sand pit, my father and mother went up there and looked at it because they thought this is a bad place for the kid to play. But it wasn't a dangerous place to play. But we played up there. And then when we got to 17, 16, 15, we'd buy old cars and we'd put them up there, and we'd run around the hill and up and down the roads.
It's literally, it's right up here.
Yeah, right by the train station.
On the other side of the train
And
tracks.
it goes all the way back to the Ice Age that caused, and in this day,
I have to go up there.
No, you can't, it's nothing there.
You can't get up there. I'm gonna find a way to get up there because I'm like an amateur rock collector. And I wanna go up and get some of that sand, because it was very gritty. And I wanna get a bag of it, just to have it.
You know where Washington bends
Yeah.
and it goes, and you go to the left? I think if you go a little bit further,
No, you're wrong.
isn't it right there?
No, go to the railroad station, come up Washington Avenue.
Right,
You go past the first Ridge Street, there's Ridge Street.
where the cemetery,
No, past there's no cemetery there. When you come in Washington Avenue, it's the new house they.
where that brand new house
$1 million
butts up against the
Go
cemetery.
past that, you go over the 287 bridge.
Right,
As soon as you go over the 287, there's two houses there. 1, 2,
On the right or the left?
on the right.
On the right.
You'll see that's the new development of road, goes up, and that went up to the sand pit.
okay.
And right across the street, my best friend lived in one of the prefab houses that were in Basking Ridge. It wasn't many, but that was one of them that they.
Are those
before
little
they-
Sears houses or
Huh?
something?
They were plywood houses, the houses they built and they brought them in on a truck.
Pre-built, yeah.
And then put them out, and all of a sudden the town says, we're not having those kind of houses here. And they stopped them, but there was about, and then on Evergreen Place, there was a bunch of prefab houses built there, and there may have been others in town, but these are the ones I know. But then they stopped them, they didn't want those kind of houses.
Because it was contractors. that were
Well,
on
it
the
was,
board.
it was cheap construction and, well, it wasn't great construction, believe me. My friend lived in it, the one right at the end of the Sandpit Road coming. And it wasn't a great house, but it was a house, but it was, and so that was the Sandpit. And we all, I'm in the fire department. We used to light fires up there and put them out, we played firemen. Well, one time it got away from us. And the fire trucks had to come up, and I'll never forget, they were up there, the thing's burning. And Frankie Grayback was a good friend of mine, he was in the fire company. And him and another guy got in a fight about how to pump the truck. And I'm thinking, guys, there's a fire here. Don't argue about how to pump the truck, get the fire, because I was getting panicking. I lit this fire. Yeah, but I told them later, I said, you guys are, and you gotta level the truck and all this, and it was a new truck then. It was probably, 1952, it was a 52 American LaFrance. And so, when I was in the fire company with it, so it was a 52, and it said, well, you gotta level it, you don't have to level it, you just pumped it, and then they're arguing. And I'm thinking, guys, just get it working, get the fire out.
And that's when the firehouse was still over here though, right?
Yes, that was over here, yes.
Right, not
And the reason I was on the
Washington Road.
committee, and the reason it went over here, because we own the property where the gazebo is, that's 2.5 acres down here.
Right down
Yeah,
here.
and we decided in the fire company that it would be better if the town owned it, because it's right in town, it's a pretty piece of property, and it's a better place than a firehouse, because then we had to come out in traffic. We went up on Washington Avenue, we could get an entrance into 287 from the backside, and we wouldn't be bothering people. We had a firehouse, and there was no houses there.
Right.
And so, and I thought, well, they'll never build here. Who wants to live next to a graveyard, a 287, a train track? Well, look at all the houses up there.
Amazing.
And I guess you move from the city, this is the country, because that's the only thing I could, because I was just saying, there'll never be a house up here. Nobody will ever build there. And look at all they got $1 million house at the end of the street. They lowered the price, I heard.
Which house is that?
That's a brand new house. It's at the corner of
Right
Ridge.
on the corner there?
Yeah, they wanted $1.2 million for it.
Where is it? On the
Oh,
corner?
right on the
Ridge
corner of
and Washington Avenue.
Yeah, Ridge and
Yeah.
Washington.
You know where the Basking Ridge Firehouse?
Yeah,
Well, if you're going down the street, you go past the firehouse,
right.
and on the right, there's houses along there. The last house, before you can make a right and
It's
go
the
up and
fir-
over the river.
It's on the corner of the first right.
Friends,
Wait,
And
I
wait,
don't look, I don't know.
okay,
Is
if
it
you
new?
made a right,
Yeah, it's
and
brand
went
new.
down a little bit further.
Butts up
there's
against the
some-
cemetery.
Basking Ridge.
The cemetery's in his backyard.
The
It's not worth-
railroad station. So
Okay.
just come back there.
Yeah.
It's not
You
worth
may
$1
not
million.
even seen it.
They don't have $1 million piece of property.
Is
Yeah,
it?
If they had a piece of
Quarter
lovely
acre.
property, but it's backed up to a cemetery, they gotta put a fence up,
Yeah, but
because the
I've
gravestones
been
are right up
looking
against
at
their
them.
See,
fence.
I wouldn't mind living in.
Poltergeist lives there.
Cemetery.
No.
Your neighbors are.
They moved some of the graves years ago out of the back.
Now, why you say something about the Sears house? Why you say Sears? There is a Sears house on Hayes Road.
There's a whole bunch of them,
Yeah.
actually. I read a story, we have
Yeah.
some of the catalogs
A very
downstairs.
interesting story.
There's a bunch of them on Madisonville Road and back up
Well, down on
over.
Maple Avenue, there's
in
a
there.
couple there.
And
Yeah.
in East Saybrook, where houses are.
If you take the thing off, you'll see numbers on the board.
Yeah,
There's
they put
numbers
them
on
Right,
it.
together.
like
They bought it
Robin's.
out.
Robin's house is.
Right.
Yeah, they used
And
to
it
bring them
wasn't
in on
only
the
Sears,
railroad.
It was Montgomery Ward did them too.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But Sears houses, the builders around here told me a long time ago, they were the best houses, because when they cut a piece and it was there, they could walk in there. Some of the places they did were terrible. They said they couldn't fit the pieces in, they had to redo them. But they said a Sears house, when it came out, when it said a piece goes here, it went where it was supposed to. And was well done, and it was a good house. So the Sears houses were supposed to be,
There's a couple
And they brought 'em on the
developments
train.
that
In
went.
East Saybrook, she has a house,
Yeah.
that's Sears.
they weren't a bad house, they were.
She likes it,
Yeah.
very well done.
Oh, I'll ask one more question. Someone asked me last night, they said, we were talking about, the Basking Ridge oak tree. I said, the funniest thing I heard when I was interviewing people about the tree was, because I did research, looked at articles of it, and it's not like you can go ask General Washington, how is the tree? But I think the best line, I forget, some old guy told me, he goes, I just love how every 50 years this tree grows 100 years older. And, in the 20s, I think it was 400 years old or whatever. But all of a sudden, like in the 60s, it was 550, and then when it dies, it's 600 something years old.
Well, George Washington really did have his luncheon.
Did? Were you with
Yes,
him?
no, they found the wax paper where Martha wrapped it up in the wooden school book,
Really?
lunchbox. See,
Yeah.
I get people to believe it all the time.
Yeah.
I
Strike
never
that.
had a problem
Strike
getting
that.
anybody to believe it.
But somebody did mention, though, there are a number of trees. Now, we talked about, like, how kids today, they're all like, oh, don't cut down the trees, it's the oxygen and whatever. I done some history of finding out, due to the invention of the Ben Franklin stove, what had happened was there was a tremendous chop down of any tree, because the trees typically have a lifespan of about 80 years. And then they just die. But for building and burning were the two things, and you look at like the aerial photographs here in the early 1900s, there's not a tree around.
No, you
I
can
mean,
almost see my house.
it's all fields, like rolling hills and
Well, the
fields.
farm-
We have twice as many trees now than
Than we did at the
in
turn of the century.
1900.
That's what-
1900.
But
Twice as many trees.
The interesting point was somebody told me a story about why this tree survived was, well, due to the fact, for example, that how oak trees just wind all over the place, they could never make a mast out of it, so it's not like, we can go get a 150-foot piece of timber out of it, build a mast for a ship or something. So it really wasn't really usable.
Well, it was in a graveyard.
Kind of let it go, and it was in a
a
graveyard.
church originally, so it's.
But somebody has said that there are other trees up in this area that are, if not that old, almost as old, oak trees up off Madisonville or
When I was on
around
West
here.
Oak Street to build a highway, they took probably a 300-year-old oak tree across the street that was in my neighbor's property
Right.
to build the temporary road to go around until they built the bridge so they could then build it. So they took it down right to the ground. And
Now was this road once called, I think it was Oak Stump, or was Mount Airy Road Oak Stump Road?
Never was Oak Stump when I was here, but. could have
Because
been.
somebody put a picture up on Facebook the other day. There's a rock on the corner of Oak Street and Mount Airy. There's a rock, still there. So the guy comes and takes a picture of it. Evidently somebody back in the day, it was put there as a
Don't believe it.
marker.
Don't believe
It
that.
was put there as a
Oh, do
marker.
believe it, it's a good story.
I don't know, just put there as a
Right, tell the
marker.
story.
It's a
Somebody
good
had
story,
written-
tell it any way you
I lived in
want.
that street all my life.
Somebody had written a
I know every
stump
rock on
on
that
it.
street, and there was no rock that was worth anything
So
other than a rock.
The guy asks me, or he asks on Facebook, he says, who is responsible for maintaining this monument?
It's
And
not-
I go,
no.
what monument? It's just a rock. I mean, I live
Somebody
right
started a story.
up the street.
There was
So he
no-
goes and he takes pictures of it, and the guy's taking pictures of it. And he's like, I remember it used to be taken care of, and there used to be a triangle up there, and the
How big
road
is the
went
rock?
this way. What?
How big is
Where
The
was
rock
it?
is this
Where was
big.
the triangle?
Yeah, where was
He
this?
said there was a triangle right up at the
He's
end of
full
Oak.
crap.
This
Okay,
is
so
what
go
I
ahead.
want to know if anybody
He's
knows.
starting a story.
What
that
is
doesn't
Oak
exist.
Stump Road? Which one? Was it Oak Street or was it Mount
You
Airy?
would know.
No,
And he's
I
really
lived in
And they
that
said it
street.
was the roughest. They said before they paved, because Maple was the first paved street in New Jersey.
Maple?
Yeah.
Oh,
First paved street in New Jersey. And they said before that, they had written stories about how it was the worst, bumpiest
Yeah, I tell
road
that. I tell that
ever
on my walking tours.
Well, you know,
outside of Oak Stump Road, which was, I'm assuming is what they
I'm
used to call Oak
assuming
Street.
that's Oak Street, yeah.
never heard.
Up to Mount Airy, or somewhere Mount Airy.
I
and
don't-
coming
But
from
this
some-
guy telling me about
I
the Oak
never
Stump
heard of
Rock, and I was just like, okay, maybe you're right. I bought into a
Oh, wrong.
falsehood story.
Now, on Maple Avenue.
But I can look up and you will see Oak Stump
You
Road.
know where you go down Maple Avenue, you go around and there's a pond on the right.
Yeah.
Okay, right there, that used to be a concrete road, built by the CCC boys in the 30s when they had to do it. People don't realize that it was a concrete from back about I guess Barty Farms, and it was concrete. Remember the concrete? It was a concrete, just like a concrete highway, and they've since long tarred over it, but underneath it. And what happened is it made it very slippery. Because I'll never forget one time I was coming back on the old 52 American La France, going by from a parade. An armored car went by us. We got to the firehouse. We're called an armored car turned over at that corner. We turned around and went back. And there's this armored car turned over, doors open, coins all over the street. And it had turned over because it had been raining. And they slid and turned over. But there was a concrete road there in the old days. And that was, it's now, but that's the only thing I know about that road that was there. That I know because it was a concrete road.
So growing up out here, one other thing that's funny, we did a thing last fall called a speakeasy. We brought like 100 people over to Burns Inn. But I'd done some research about all the
Speakeasies around.
hidden distilleries that were around here.
Well, they were all over the place.
They were all over the place. weren't
Burnsville
they?
had a
Yeah.
lot. Burnsville had, in fact, I worked at a liquor
Not
store.
speakeasies, but distilleries.
Yeah,
like
but
in-
I worked in a
in
liquor
houses?
store with the heck was his name, Italian in Burnsville. And two of them, both of them were, and Wee Wee Velacci was over there. And he was, Robert Velacci is his name, but he was this short, so they called him Wee Wee. He was a real
Wee
short
Wee.
guy. But and he owned the townhouse. He owned the townhouse, believe me. I spent a lot of time there.
In Little Italy over there?
No, right in the
No.
center of town.
Right in the
The
center of
old
town.
stone,
Right next to
no,
Burns.
the one that burned up in Burnsville, the tavern that burned,
Yeah.
that was Wee Wee's, it's called the
Oh, the
townhouse.
station.
Station, the
Yeah.
station, that was the townhouse when I was out of the army in 61. Wee Wee Velacci owned it, he had had it for many years. It used to be the wagon wheel, which was around the corner. Just you went up the Claremont and then right, made a first left. We used to be in that building right there,
Okay.
in the corner. And then he moved it down to the center of Burnsville and called it the townhouse. And, but it was kind of a going place when I got out of the service. It was a place you went to. Young people, it was a good, clean place. That was, girls could go in there and never be harassed. That was what was nice about it. Anybody could go in this. He ran, it was a place that kids went, young people. I was 21 when I got service, so it was about that age. But anybody could go in there. It was a nice place to go. And, but it turned out really nice there. But now where was I going with this story? I don't
I know, I was trying to think.
I was asking about distilleries, where guys
Oh, this
Oh,
fill
distillery.
in
and then I
sales
got
and woods.
out of the service, I just got out of the service, and I worked in Rare and Liquors in Bernardsville. Well, the two guys that worked in there, they both worked in speakeasies in Bernardsville. And they got raided, and Wee Wee Valachi was one of them that got caught or something like that. And the only reason he could get a liquor license downtown, because he had a super war record, you know, and got wounded and shot, and did a lot of heroic things, and they gave him a license, and which he would have never gotten. But they had a lot of, and the sheriff, the town, Kennedy went out of town. Was it Kennedy? Was it the chief of police of Bernards? Kenny. Anyway, it doesn't make any difference, but he left town and the raiders came in. They always said he left so they could come in. They raided the speakeasy. He got arrested. These guys got all arrested. But there was a lot of speakeasies around the
Couldn't
area.
get a license.
Yeah. But just to,
Jeez, we've gone way over again.
I know.
But now, why did you move to Basking Ridge?
Well, I grew up in Warren.
That's right, you didn't.
My husband grew up in Basking Ridge, so when we were engaged and we were gonna decide where we were gonna live, we said, you know what, we won't live in the towns that we grew up in. So we got married, we first lived in Warren, and then we moved to Basking Ridge. So, there you have
you
it.
can go far.
And why did you move to Basking Ridge?
Why? Because all of my family, I'm from Patterson, and the natural migration for Patterson is to move to Wayne. I didn't like my family. A lot of them. A lot of them I do. So I just came out this way. And it was the time that 287 was not complete, nor was 78. But it was also already getting a reputation as being a pretty affluent area. And why would I want to live where the poor people live? So I moved out here.
Why did you move here?
Well, we've heard.
Like I said,
There's sister-in-law.
because they were polite kids.
Polite kids, that's right.
That's right, I was the polite kid.
And I've never looked back. I can't imagine me living anyplace else.
Yeah.
I
In
don't
spite
mind.
of who my neighbor is, that he should come down with chronic diarrhea.
Who's that?
That's
His
not-
brother-in-law.
No, not my,
No,
he's
no.
long gone. My brother-in-law's long at it.
Who's the one that
He
lives,
lives over
the
in
sign guy,
He lives in the hills.
the sign guy.
Oh, the sign, I don't know, I don't know who he is. I've never met
a
him.
human being.
Oh, really?
Oh, I thought you said like one of your
No, that's where
relatives.
he lived.
Oh, he lived where the
He
sign
lived
guy.
where he
Oh,
did.
okay.
No, he had nothing to do.
I'll come back, but
You can cut that.
I was gonna say,